Hey BookTube, this will be my February wrap-up. I only managed to finish 2 books in February compared to the 6 that I finished in January, so this will be a much shorter video. Dhalgren by Samuel R. Delaney, is that what it is? Yeah, Samuel R. Delaney. I got about halfway through. It took up almost all my time in February. I read like 400 plus pages of it, and then DNF'd it. I think I DNF'd it in March because I was going to try to keep going with it. But yeah, I hated that book. So that was the worst book I read in February. There were parts of it that I kind of liked, and then I was like, okay, I can see potential here, but I was reading it for a sci-fi book club, and I read half of that giant book, and I could not figure out really what was really sci-fi about it, other than that the moon and the sun were doing some weird stuff in the sky, and that people had these like light things that they wore that sometimes made them look like something else. It's so confusing. It was so weird. It's considered a classic, so, and I know there are people out there that love it, so I'm not one of them. I did not like that one at all. So yeah, so that one was the worst book that I read. And then the next two tie, because they're both amazing, and how can you ever compare them? I mean, it's like picking one of your favorite children. But the second one that I read, oh, so Dhalgren was a library book, thank goodness, so I don't have that. But the next best book, tied for first, that I read was The Hobbit by Tolkien. It was a reread. I first read this all the way back in junior high. It was around the time that the movies were coming out. I think I read The Hobbit and The Fellowship before the movie came out. And then before the next movie came out, I read the next 2 books. But anyway, so this was the last time I actually read this book, was all the way back in junior high, which I'm not going to tell you how many years ago that was. But it was a minute. It's been a minute. I mean, what can you say about this that hasn't already been said? You know, one of the best fantasies ever written. There was a lot of stuff that, going back after having like watched the movie, I was like, oh, I completely forgot. Like, there are some things that I'm like, obviously, like, okay, well, that wasn't in the book and I remember that. But then there were other things that I was like, oh, that's not in the book, or oh, that's in the book, why didn't they put that in the movie? So there are some things that I can understand why they would change it for like a film adaptation. I feel like a lot of this book is just walking and having meals, or complaining about not having meals. But the good parts, like the battles, the creepy riddle part with Gollum and everything like that, I mean, that in the book, like, that's, you really feel for Bilbo in that moment. But yeah, the kind of intrigue of like Smaug's treasure having a hold over the dwarves, and especially Oakenshield. So that kind of stuff is like really, really good. But it's a classic. You can't really like, everything about modern fantasy is kind of based on like the shoulders of Tolkien. So like, how am I gonna say anything bad about it? But yeah, I thought that Thranduil played a much more integral role, maybe because of the movies, but I thought I remembered even in the book that he was much more integral than just this like snooty king that didn't want to be bothered, and then at the end kind of shows up and is like, yeah, I'll help, like. so I'm kind of glad they expanded on his character a little bit in the movie. I don't think I like how snooty he is in the movies, but anyway, great book. If you haven't read any Tolkien, or especially The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, what are you doing with your life? Get on it. The next one I ended up picking, because I have like a little graph that I'm kind of like choosing the best book out of each month, and then it's kind of like a bracket, like, you know, like when you do like basketball brackets or whatever for basketball season. I don't know how much you guys know about that. I only know it because they made us do it in school, which was stupid. But you have like your little brackets of like each one that's like best during the month, and so like then like you do like January, February, and then like you pick your 2 favorites for that, and then those 2 go head to head, and then that's your next like favorite, and then they all go down until you get to the very last 2 at the end of the year, and then you finally have like what your favorite book of the year supposedly is. So the next one actually just by the skin of its teeth beat out The Hobbit, and that is The Rise and Fall of the Dinosaurs by Steve Broussat. I could be saying that last name incorrectly, but I'll put it up here somewhere on the screen. It's a library book, but it's one that I definitely added to my to-buy list because I want to reread it and I want to have it in my house because it's amazing. It is probably one of the best books on dinosaurs that I've ever read in my entire life, and I love dinosaurs. The way that he writes about the findings and the people that are involved was so good. Like it's a nonfiction book, and it's packed with facts, but you feel like you're reading a novel. It is that good. He is that good at what he does when he's writing, like as a science communicator. And he's a paleontologist. Like he digs up bones. He helped, like, you know, categorize and name certain dinosaurs and everything. So it's not like he's just a science communicator, but that's what he's doing in this book, is communicating the science of paleontology, and it's just great. It is so fascinating. If you have even a passing fancy for dinosaurs or paleontology, I would 100% suggest to read this book. It is fantastic. The way he talks about like some of the other like scientists and stuff, and they're from like all walks, like and disciplines. So like it might be someone that is more like a forensics, like DNA, like, you know, kind of expert, and then there's also the guys that go out in the field and like are, you know, digging up the bones, and then there's just the people that are like, you know, looking over the bones, like, you know, the fossils and everything after the fact, like once, and then re-looking over them, because there are a lot of things that were gathered early on in like the great craze of like dino hunting and everything, and then now we're just now going back and kind of like realizing like, oh, okay, well actually these 2 things are like 2 completely different species, even though we thought they were the same. And it's amazing. The findings that are coming out of China with like the feathered dinosaurs and stuff like that is just, it's all like so cool. And so he goes from like kind of pre-dinosaur to the rise of the dinosaurs, to how they kind of like by kind of a fluke of nature became the top dogs for millions of years on this planet. And then like kind of the micro extinctions, they're significant extinctions, but they didn't completely wipe out all the dinosaurs. Kind of the little extinctions that they go through like all the way through their entire reign, and then the big one, the big extinction that ended up wiping out all of the big dinosaurs that we know of, like, you know, the T-Rexes, the Triceratops, and everything like that. So, and then he kind of goes into like the legacy that they've left behind in birds, because birds are dinosaurs. They have evidence. He puts forth a really good argument for it. I mean, it's there. I know there's still some naysayers and stuff, but it's, you know, it's a really excellent read. So yeah, so that was my best read for February. So that's about it. Like I said, so kind of like a little, like I think I said in one of my posts on my Fable account, that it kind of felt like a step backwards, because I did so well in January with like 6 books read, and then I only read like 2.5 in February, and then I ended up not finishing that other half one, so it was just kind of like, eh. But quality of read was really high in February compared to the quantity, so I'll take it. What was your best read of February, if you remember it? Do you DNF books, or do you push through, or do you have like a percentage that you stop at? Because like sometimes I can tell like 20 to 30% of the way in that I'm not going to read something, but this book got me to read it all the way to the 50% mark, and then I was like, Now we're getting to problematic stuff. I'm talking about Dhalgren. Back to Dhalgren again. So anyway, yeah, do you DNF books? What's the worst book you've ever read? Dhalgren's up there for me. Thank you guys for listening to me. I love hearing from you. So if you guys want to leave any kind of comments about anything down in the comment section, I'm here for it. That's the whole point of the channel, is to have conversations about books. So, all right. Thank you guys. Have a good one. Bye.